Live now is Johan Plesner, president of the Israel Democracy Institute. He is a former member of the Israeli Knesset. Johan, thank you so much for being with us. So we're seeing this ongoing...
Zain, and thanks for having me.
Of course. So we're seeing this ongoing cycle of violence every few years between Israel and Hamas. 2008, 2012, 2014. What do you think is different this time?
Well, there are two events that are taking place at the same time. There's the cycle of violence vis-a-vis Hamas in Gaza, and here what we're having again is Hamas, because of its own political needs and own political motivation to position itself as leader of the Palestinian cause, is attacking Israeli civilians, shooting more than 1,000 missiles targeted at Israeli innocent civilians and trying to kill as many Jews as possible. And this is one event. And there's another event that you just described just before having me, of riots and mobs assaulting innocent civilians in Israeli streets. Those are not protests. Those are mobsters. They're a minority, but a very harmful minority. And unfortunately, they're unwinding decades of work on creating a shared society in Israel, and this event needs to be treated in a completely different manner. One event is a law enforcement event, and the event vis-a-vis Gaza is a military event that requires strong, aggressive response to exact a severe price for Hamas leadership.
So Johan, let me just ask you this. We'll get to what's happening in terms of community violence in Israel in just a moment. But what do you make of the proportionality of the Israeli response? Obviously, in terms of Hamas launching rockets into Israel, 90%, 85% of those rockets get intercepted by the Iron Dome. I understand that there has been a huge disruption to Israeli life in certain cities, children not going to school, people hiding out in shelters. But when people say to you, or you hear people say that the Israeli response, by comparison, has been too strong, do you understand what they're saying?
I understand it, and I understand that they are actually not well versed in the details. What we're seeing is a situation whereby Hamas is targeting 100% of its missiles are targeted at Israeli citizens. They're aimed at killing kids. Me and my family are spent the night in a safe room because Hamas tried to shoot missiles and kill us and our kids. All 100% of IDF response and retaliation is designed to attack Hamas capacity, Hamas personnel, and unfortunately, there is collateral damage. Israel should not apologize for trying to defend its citizens, to defend its sovereignty, and it's doing so in an extremely professional manner, and obviously giving warnings before pulling down buildings that Hamas is using. Now, Hamas cynically is placing and stockpiling all of its rockets, not in military bases and in proper army installations, but rather they are placing them within the civilian population, in mosques, in hospitals, in order to turn their own civilians into human shields.
So, Johan,
it's a cynical situation.
Johan,
and
let me ask you this.
Those tragedies are the making of the Hamas leadership. And
Johan, let me ask you this. So where does this go from here? People in Gaza, as you know, there are casualties, civilian casualties, over 80 people dead. 18 of those are children, innocent children. So people in Gaza clearly are suffering. And on the Israeli side, when you see what's happening, what's playing out in mixed cities like Lod, like Acre, that kind of violence, especially in, as you were talking about, shared societies, these shared cities that were symbols of hope, that is unsustainable. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what's happening within Israel proper is heartbreaking. And again, there should be a very clear distinction. Vis-a-vis Hamas, Hamas needs to pay a dear price to the extent that its actual regime will have to pay a price, and its leaders, one by one, should pay a price for those war crimes that they're perpetrating. Vis-a-vis Israeli society, we should not give up on the vision of a shared society. We're here, we're doomed or fortunate to live together. 20% of Israel's population are Israeli Arabs, and the majority of Israelis, both Jewish and Arab, want to live together. The statistics, we at the Israel Democracy Institute, we're promoting this vision of a shared society. The numbers are telling a different story. The numbers are telling a story of a majority, a vast majority of Israeli Arab citizens wanting to integrate into Israel's economy, into Israel's political system. We were about to form a government that for the first time would enjoy or be based on the support of a political party that is mainly supported by Israel's Arab citizens. So major steps forward were made, and unfortunately...
and those hopes have been dashed now. Those hopes seem to have been dashed now.
I wouldn't say dashed, but a step back for sure. And part of it is the doing of the social networks that helped flame up and fire up those religious emotions, and many of the false facts that was spread really fired up many youngsters within the Arab community. And I hope that both the combination of strong leadership at all levels and law enforcement to deal with the actual mobsters will help us unwind those terrible events.
Johan Plessner, we have run out of time, unfortunately. We have to leave it there, but I appreciate your perspective coming on the program. Thank you so much.